Women in Africa gained the vote half a century ago, but in many countries this has never been translated into power. Rights may have been won, but tradition and culture have proved far harder to change than the laws. In one small country in the heart of Africa, women seem to have broken through the glass ceiling, achieving parity with their male colleagues in parliament and rising to prominent positions in government. But it took one of the bloodiest episodes in modern history to make this break with the past. 100 days in 1994, which saw the deaths of 800,000 Rwandans at the hands of their countrymen.
There were so many widows, and there were so many women who were poor because they had lost their husbands and property and all that. So as we're trying to put things together, women were able to work together.
Our women were heroes because they were ready to come up and to go with the challenges, but not dying with the challenges.
Having played a vital role in the rebuilding of their country, women in Rwanda have been rewarded with a share of power. Under the 2003 constitution, 30% of all parliamentarians must now be women. But not everyone agrees that these gains are either real or desirable.
Look at the women, and then you look at their background, you look at their CVs. I've always come to the conclusion that many of them, if it was not the 30%, they could really not merit those positions.
Rwanda's economy grew by 6% in 2007, the 14th year of continuous growth since the genocide, and an impressive statistic for a country which is still 90% reliant on subsistence farming. At the forefront of this success are Rwanda's women. Women have always played a role in agriculture, but the events of the last decade have seen dramatic changes in the way that they've been rewarded for this work.
Culture is a strong thing in any community. Before genocide, we found that women were not allowed to inherit land equal to the men. For example, you find that a woman was not allowed to open an account. That was the situation before genocide.
It was a very bad situation for women first, but I also it seemed not good for the whole country. Yeah, that a small percentage of women could go to school. Actually, a very small percentage. That's we still see the consequences of such a situation today.
Over the last 10 years, Rwanda has brought in laws guaranteeing equal rights for women. The economic upturn may be coincidental, but women are visibly playing an increasing role in the development of their country. Female literacy has risen from 10% before the genocide to 50%, and their empowerment and education are at the forefront of what the government calls its 2020 vision, the movement to a modern, knowledge-based economy by 2020. Rwanda is today controlled by the RPF, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, the political wing of the rebel army which took power after the 1994 genocide. The RPF still holds more than half the seats in parliament and, crucially, the powerful office of president. Paul Kagame now runs the country as a civilian leader, but many of the policies he's implemented were formulated as a guerrilla commander in the forests of Uganda and northern Rwanda in the 1980s. As Tutsi refugees unable to return to their own country, the RPF were acutely aware of discrimination. And as a rebel movement, they understood that empowering women effectively doubled their numbers. Rose Kabuye spent 4 years fighting alongside the men, rising to the rank of lieutenant colonel.
I think the RPF had, among the leadership, people who had read about revolutionaries. They had read books about struggles. And when they started, because of what they had read, and because they felt that some of those countries that had involved the women in the liberation war, they felt that women have to be part of it.
In July 1994, the RPF took the capital Kigali, ending the genocide. Even after the years of war, they were ill prepared for what they found.
They were devastated to see so many bodies. I had never seen so many bodies of people lying on just all over. From here to where our base was, about 60 miles away, you would just walk and see bodies all over. So this is something that I had never seen. Yes, I was a soldier, I had fought, I had seen soldiers getting wounded, but I had never seen women and children. I had never seen old people lying, crying for mercy.
Despite centuries of coexistence, the genocide had turned neighbour against neighbour. Hutus who opposed the killing were murdered, but most of the victims were Tutsi. In practice, those who looked Tutsi or did not carry an ID card to prove that they were Hutu. As an ethnic war, women were as much a target as men.
In most wars, you would find that men are targeted because maybe they are fighting. But this war didn't have anybody, didn't spare anybody. And what we saw was that women were a target, especially in sexual harassment. So they were raped, and most of them now have HIV.
A group of attackers reached us at around 6 o'clock in the evening. We left the house one by one, but they had come for my husband, and the moment they found him, they killed him.
Julienne's story is typical. She was living with her husband and 7 children on a small farmstead when the Hutu militia known as the Interahamwe came. After murdering her husband, she and her daughters were raped.
They beat us, undressed us, and we ran until we reached the other side of the hill. They caught my eldest daughter and took her away. They kept her with them, raping her for 2 months, and then they murdered her when the RPF came.
Julienne lost her husband and all 7 of her children in the genocide. Like so many other women, she was left with severe injuries and infected with HIV.
I was 36 years old then. Now I'm 50. Do you know how it feels when you lose all your children? Some women at least were left with one, or have given birth to others, but I have none. The genocide affected everyone, but I say it affected me the most, because I was left alone.
Helpless and alone, Julienne was unable to support herself and struggled to make sense of a world that could bring such misfortune. Oda Gazizingwa is president of the National Women's Council, one of the many organisations set up after the war to help rebuild the country.
You can imagine a woman raped by 30, 40, genociders, and you can imagine the trauma, you can imagine the HIV and AIDS, you can imagine some of them are handicapped, totally handicapped, so that is a big challenge we have.
The RPF victory of July 1994 left it in charge of a country in ruins. When it came to choosing the people to manage the reconstruction, the new government made a bold statement. The women who had fought in the struggle and the women who had suffered in the genocide were not to be forgotten.
A lady was appointed to head Kigali City as a mayor. I think that it was the first time that such a thing had happened in Rwanda. If you talk to people here in Rwanda, it was something very surprising.
I had gone through leadership roles, so I was not scared of being the mayor, except I was scared of the roles I had, especially what I was faced with in that first years after war and genocide, when you had to bring back life in the city.
The genocide had left the country in the hands of women, partly because of the killing, but also because many Hutu men had fled the country, fearing reprisals from the RPF. It was these women, both Hutu and Tutsi, who were left to start the reconciliation process.
We had women, it was a challenge. It is unique in Rwanda. It was a challenge because we had women survivors, we had women with their husbands in jail, we had women who were returnees from other countries outside Rwanda.
129,000 Rwandans, the majority men, were imprisoned for their role in the genocide. The weight of numbers meant that a conventional process of trial and retribution would take decades, and another solution had to be found if the majority of prisoners were not to die in jail. Gacaca has been Rwanda's answer, grassroots justice, where a panel of local judges hears testimony against those accused of involvement in the genocide. Defendants are encouraged to confess their guilt to the community and to ask for forgiveness. Women have played their role in Gacaca too, partly as judges, but more importantly, in forgiving those who killed their husbands and families. Gacaca was brought in to forgive the past, but something more had to be done to guarantee the future.
Women were meeting women survivors, women from those who the husband has killed, and they would form associations, they would work together, and so it became part of the healing process. So I think women played a big role in helping other women and in forging peace.
The Gahaya cooperative was set up to provide employment for widows and orphans of the genocide. Today it has 3,000 weavers nationwide, producing Rwandan peace baskets for the international market. Every month a new set of women comes in to train, learning a skill but also developing relationships. These women then return home, often taking with them a new perspective on the past. Iphigenia and Epiphany, one Tutsi, the other Hutu, lived in the same village before the genocide. Their story mirrors that of so many women in Rwanda. Iphigenia lost her husband and family to the genocide, and Epiphany lost hers to prison, but together they've built a new life.
We stopped that ideology of saying this one is a wife to a Hutu, this one to a Tutsi. We live together. We weave together. We can't keep on living with what happened before.
If people keep on living in the past, they get tortured. It can't help you anyway. It's good to live together in peace and forgive each other. If we always lived with this memory, we would be poisoning our children, and we don't want our country to have genocide again.
Economic empowerment has helped women to erase the memories of the past, but political empowerment remains the guarantee of their future. In this area, however, progress is far harder to quantify.